Hey everyone, welcome to our Windows 10 End of Life webinar, What Law Firms Need to Know. And my name is Michael Glasser, and I've been in the IT space for 25 plus years, working exclusively for law firms. I've written a book on cybersecurity, which is available, and you can message me to get that, mglasser at frontlinems.com. But most importantly, I help law firms empower them to get the most of their technology. And I'm going to introduce my partner here today, Andres Lemus. Andres, tell us a little about yourself.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Michael. I am Andres Lemos. I'm the Director of Managed IT Services at Frontline. I focus more on really helping the legal vertical and our clientele with their IT needs. This could be anything from a managed services perspective of things to support desk, direction, consulting. Those are some of the services that we provide here. Been in the IT industry over 10 years, in the legal vertical for approximately 4 going on 5, and it's been an extremely exciting ride.
Yeah, it's been great working with you as well. And again, just so everyone knows, that's pretty much 99% of our client base is law firms. We just have a specific expertise in being able to help them get the most out of their technology and usage. So that's why we're on the call today to help explain why Windows 10 End of Life is important to you guys. If you don't know about it already, Microsoft Windows 10 is going end of life officially October 14th. So there's less than 6 months left. After that date, Microsoft will no longer provide security updates, bug fixes, or support. This is important because organizations handle sensitive data. They needed secure systems. They operate under strict compliance. Law firms it's not just really a technology issue, it's really a business risk. And now is really the time to prepare for it. Andres, anything to add on the impending end of life on Windows 10?
Sure. I think it's probably good to point out that Windows 10 actually went end of life approximately 2 years ago. End of support being the final component of that, which means that, as you mentioned, that Microsoft is going to stop presenting any sort of security patches, which leaves the system in essence the law firm vulnerable to any potential attacks.
Yeah, definitely. So as we mentioned here on the bottom, you'll see, you're be more open to data breaches or regulatory non-compliance, which we'll talk about later on. Of course, also increased IT costs trying to support unsupported operating systems there as well. So look, here's a little bit of a comparison here. Windows 10 end of life, there'll be no more security updates. Well, Windows 11, you've got the modern security architecture that Windows 10 really wasn't built upon there. It'll be a regulatory risk or a risk with your compliance.
Correct.
Windows 11 is more compliance ready. Windows 10's slow performance. Windows 11 is more optimized for performance of the latest hardware out there. Andres, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, absolutely. Something to add there is, while you may hear out there that there is a chance to essentially extend the supportability for an additional year, that obviously comes at a cost and also just continues to put you as the decision maker further behind on where you really need to be, which is going to be Windows 11 here. We'll get into it in a little bit here, but in reality, at this point, we're playing catch up for a majority of businesses, right? So it's going to be important to no longer delay it, to assess the situation, the risks, and go ahead and start creating plans to move forward. Now, obviously, Windows 11 is geared more towards security, which is the way of the world just due to how things operate. But it's also built more around the classic and new buzzword that has been going around for a couple of years now of AI. It is more AI able. It is actually getting designed around the use of it, and depending on the vendor, it's also built to do things locally and interact with things such as Microsoft's Copilot.
Right. And one thing people just might not realize, Windows 11 is not new. It might be new to you, but Windows 11 has been out, I think, about 3 years now. So it's just, it's been available. Just if you've been running Windows 10 without an issue, you just haven't been focused on what it's around there. So Windows 11 is new. It's pretty stable in its life cycle, meaning that going to it isn't as much a risk depending on your applications, which we'll talk about later on. So just want to make sure people understand it's not something that you just came out yesterday and you have to really worry about it. So look, this is important. Why Windows 11 is built for modern law firms and why it's important to you. In addition to being phasing out Windows 10, why will it be good to switch to Windows 11 if you haven't already switched to it? So some of the things on here is that there's some next generation security it supports what is called a technical term, we like acronyms in our industry, TPM, or Trusted Platform Module 2.0. What that means is that there's the ability to take advantage of latest cybersecurity protections that help prevent and create a barrier. It doesn't mean you've got zero risk, right, Andres?
It just reduces it, really.
Yeah.
At that point, the TPM module, which is a requirement for a system to be compatible with Windows 11, it functions more for drive encryption components and storage of key and passwords in a secure vault that lives physically on the computer itself. But yes, some of the security components are requirements for Windows 11, and so that's where a little bit of the compatibility comes in and why certain systems will not be able to upgrade to Windows 11.
Great. And now Windows 11 is definitely faster with the latest processors. It works better than Windows 10. The interface is a little more intuitive. There are some improved multitasking features, but most importantly, as more and more law firms, if they haven't already, are on the Microsoft 365 ecosystem for Office and Word and Outlook, it integrates more seamlessly with Windows 11. So, that's one of the big benefits of that. Plus, the coming AI revolution, if you haven't started already, Windows 11 is poised to take advantage of that, especially, again, with the newer hardware out there as well.
Speaking of Office 365 or Microsoft 365 in Windows 11, along with the support ending for Windows 10 this coming October, support for Office applications on Windows 10 platforms is also coming to an end at the same time. So it becomes critical for operations to go ahead and continue moving in the direction of Windows 11, since that is now the newly supported standard.
Right. And so that's why it's also important, we'll talk about later on, to make sure, if you haven't had an assessment ready, to get an assessment of your environment, not just for Windows 11 readiness, but what other applications might be coming end of life, what other operating systems Microsoft routinely also deems end of life as well. But again, we'll talk about that a little bit later on as we get through this. So look, making the transition can be painful if you don't have somebody to help you out through it, actually. But if it's a thought out process, if you've got a partner or a trusted partner that will help do an assessment, as I was just talking about, that can look at your current infrastructure, see what applications you're currently running, are they compatible, do other things need to be upgraded, and then you can have what's called a phased rollout to avoid some downtime, to ensure your team isn't overwhelmed, to make sure that things are tested correctly. I'll just add some color here on that.
Yeah, I mean, those two kind of go hand in hand. In order for you to plan the phase rollout, you need to know whether or not you're going to be doing upgrades to Windows 11 for existing compatible equipment, or if you're going to have to make the decision of purchasing outright new equipment that comes pre-installed with Windows 11 Pro in most circumstances. And so that all hinges on a good assessment to begin with. The assessment of the environment should encompass, like you said, what applications are already compatible with Windows 11, whether or not you need to upgrade to certain versions of those applications to get compatible, whether or not your existing system, servers, infrastructure is also capable of managing Windows 11 devices. If they currently manage Windows 10, then via a couple of updates and upgrades, you should be able to also handle Windows 11. But part of the nice thing of Windows 11 is that it's built to be better managed through a hybrid model. So hybrid work and some of the other managing components like Intune and or just a hybrid configuration there will also be very much compatible with it. And then that leads us to our phased rollout. Once we've identified, yes, we have our applications ready to go for Windows 11. They've been optimized, or our environment has been optimized to handle Windows 11. Let's go ahead and then start thinking of what the phased rollout is going to look. If it's a combination of upgrades and Windows 11 purchases, especially depending on aged out hardware, or if we want to go ahead and start from scratch.
Yeah, that's really important as well, because you might have a system that's 5 years old that's capable of being upgraded to Windows 11. The assessment will help you make determination, does it make sense to upgrade to Windows 11? Perhaps it's better to phase it out and retire that system due to its age. So those are types of things that we help clients roadmap to make sure we can budget correctly and keep them from guessing what's going to happen in the future as well. And just look, one more note of caution, there's a little bit of concerns about hardware and it's changing rapidly. There might be supply chain issues. So it's really important to get on this as soon as possible because we're really just not sure, as anyone is, with what the environment is with computers and availability and what's going on in the world as well. So
Absolutely.
the risks of doing nothing. I mean, this is key. You can't do nothing. And if you do nothing, we'll talk later on about what that is and what those risks entails. But without security patches or updates, Microsoft issues updates every month. They call it Patch Tuesday. You might not have ever heard of it, but they call it Patch Tuesday. And so those updates for Windows 10 will stop. That means that the law firm will become vulnerable to cyber attacks, potentially ransomware, and other malicious threats that, threat actors can gain access to your data and disrupt your law firm operations. So the other risk is you'll fall out of compliance. Now, the word compliance doesn't necessarily mean regulatory compliance. It could be regulatory compliance with or compliance with your cyber insurance, or with industry standards, or with your client obligations around data security. So you can't afford to be out of compliance with your clients or your cyber insurance, because then if there's an incident, you're going to either get sued or you'll lose your coverage on your insurance on that. Andres, do you want to add something around that?
I think you covered it right there. It's going to be absolutely pivotal for law firms to go ahead and stay on top of those, especially for their cyber insurance component of things, because they can reject claims that way. And obviously, they're there for a reason, but they also have to protect themselves.
Right. And so I'm going to say they most likely will reject your claim, because when you fill out a cyber insurance policy application or even a client questionnaire about what you do, you're saying that you patch your systems on a routine basis, or which means update the systems on a routine basis. Well, if Windows 10 is in non-compliance and can no longer be updated correctly, they're going to say, well, you fall out of compliance with that requirement. So, and it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars if there is a breach, not just on a payout to a hacker, but also the remediation of that breach and stuff like that. Plus, lost client confidence, lost revenues, lost reputation. Look, the bottom line, waiting costs more financially, operationally, and reputationally. So those are really key points out there. And I'm not understating those risks, because we've seen them happen to clients and law firms. So look, what's the next step here, right? We are doing, Andres and I came up with a free Windows 10 risk assessment consultation. And what that means is that we'll help walk you through what your current setup is. We'll identify any upgrade needs and build a roadmap that minimizes disruption and maximizes value. And that roadmap is key, because a lot of law firms don't have that roadmap to their budget. Many of our clients have these roadmaps ready, and they knew well in advance that in 2025 they'd have to replace equipment and whatnot. And so we want you to be proactive rather than reactive on that. So again, you're going to learn your hardware and software compatibility, your cybersecurity and compliance gaps, and a phased timeline for your migration, as well as the guidance and a long-term ROI that you'll get out of doing this. Andres, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, just a little bit. Something else to add, and of course, it's a little bit of complexity, but the reality that we live in is at the moment, and just having gone through this with a variety of our longstanding and trusted vendors, we now see the fun additional verbiage of prices may vary depending on where we are on our tariff conversation with countries. And so that can increase the cost. So I would say probably taking action on this while we know where we stand on those, instead of continuing to push it a little bit further down the road. And not only that, but knowing that vendors are going to have to keep up with the demand. I think Windows 10 still holds probably close to 55% of the overall operating system market, which means that it's not just your law firm, but a significant amount of other businesses out there that will be looking for either upgrading to Windows 11 and or purchasing hardware. So there will be some competition, and the vendors are going to have to try and keep up with demand to go ahead and meet that, especially as not everybody can afford an extended support contract, or the move may be towards continued hybrid work. And so instead of having to purchase a desktop, you now have to think about purchasing a laptop. And we know what happened. We remember what happened during the COVID days, whenever everybody was sent home and there was a reduction in availability of laptops and certain systems. So right now is the perfect time to start thinking about those, considering the consequences, and just preparing for them more so than anything. Regardless of what the task is at hand, as long as we're able to prepare for it, then you are going to be in a much better, stronger stance.
Yeah. Great point, because I saw towards the end of last year, there is something like 35 million business class computers that need to be replaced for Windows 11. So that is a lot. And so, I know we usually just think of ourselves. We don't think of everyone else, the greater population out there. So it's important to get started soon. So that's why we wanted to put together this Windows 10 Risk Assessment Consultation. Please, we're going to have a way to link out to us at the end of this video, so you could connect with us on that. Really important to learn what it's going to cost you, what time it'll take to do it, and make sure that we can get it done in time to make sure you're protected. And so, look, you'll find the link, actually, as I was just saying, to schedule in the video description here. So there'll be a link at the bottom here. So thanks again for your time today. And remember, the best time to plan this transition was actually yesterday. The second best time is now. So we appreciate it. And Andres, thanks for your time and being here today. And it was great.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, Michael.